So welcome everybody to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio, and today is Monday, October the 2nd. Oh my goodness, another month, and it's 2023. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And while we're waiting on Michael to dial in, I'll just say you can go to the website, and we now have the video link for last Thursday when they did the book club, and they went through 28, and they went through doing a worksheet with a young lady. And so that is available on the website now. And also, excuse me, if you go to the Spanish page, I'm clicking as I go so that I make sure I tell you right. You can scroll down on the Spanish page. The first part, there's like several things that have been translated, most of them by Nene. 6 Aramaic keys for living and the Aramaic forgiveness process and different things. But then if you scroll on down, there's also the forgiveness worksheets in Spanish, and then below that is the meditation by Nene, and there are several links where she did different meditations like for sleep and restore your system or time management, healing crisis, different things. And then scroll a little bit further, and there's the summary of Saturday, September the 30th, and there is the Spanish explanation of what they did as well as the English translation of what they did, and then at the bottom of it is the link to go to the YouTube channel if you missed it. So several people were interested in tapping into her meditations, and even if they were in Spanish, and so that is now out there for you to check out and participate in. And we thank Nene for making that available and for doing the work. So if you have a question or a comment, or you want to direct the way that the show goes, you press 1, and that puts a little hand up, and I know you want to talk instead of that you're just out there listening, and we would love to hear from you. Michael and I have been out in the garden this morning where we have a new section of the pollinator garden, which is the flowers and all, and so we have planted a total of over 100 bulbs, but we planted about 45 this morning, and then we harvested basil and have it in a bucket, picked the leaves off, and it's ready to make pesto. Probably won't do that today. We get aria today and tomorrow, but we've got it in the cool room, so it will be okay until we get around to making pesto. And so we're getting the land in the vegetable garden areas. We've harvested most of the things that we can for right now. There's still a few tomatoes and squash coming on, but we've harvested all of the bee balm and the lemon balm and as many of the tomatoes as we can, and getting the ground prepared for the winter. And so we're excited going into another stage of it. And so at this time, I will welcome Michael.
Well, thank you, Dearheart, and welcome everybody. Delighted that you're here, and excited to move forward on the next level. For those who heard Dan talking on the show the other day, I got a note from him yesterday afternoon, and we had announced that he had sent us a picture of a stack of 700 completed worksheets, and I got a note from him yesterday, I believe it was, it might have been the day before, that he's completed 800 now. So that's pretty good, 100 worksheets in a week. He's rocking. Things are moving and changing, so put your pen to the paper. It makes a difference. And beyond that, let's see. I actually was working on and preparing a piece to present on being versus non-being. And, I spent about 2.5 or 3 hours on it yesterday, and it crashed and disappeared. So we're not going to do that today. We're just going to open the space and see what everybody's got to say. Our call-in number, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you're listening directly to the show. And then if you push 1, through the magic of technology, we'll raise a hand in the control panel. we really do appreciate Blog Talk Radio, that for a really reasonable cost on a monthly basis, we get to use this awesome technology where, well, here I am in one room calling in on my phone. Jeannie's in another room on a computer running the control panel. You're in, I don't know, Timbuktu or wherever you are, Sweden, Australia, anywhere in the United States, well, anywhere in the world, really, there's an internet connection. And then, you know, when it's all over, just within minutes, I don't know exactly what the time frame is that they're ready, but you can go in and you can create a link to the show so you can send it to anybody to listen to. You can download it, listen to it as many times as you need to, you know, those shows that where it really clicks for you, or you know they put you into an altered state and you know you have to come back and keep visiting it. If you do listen to a show that kind of shift you into an altered state. I know that years ago, and I'm talking now 40 years ago, when I started working with A Course in Miracles, there were two particular paragraphs in the Course that every time I read them, I would go into a totally altered state of mind. I mean, I'd be in my regular, you know, I'm doing my thing, you know, whatever I've got to do today. And I'd just start to read those two paragraphs, and my mind would shift into just a totally and completely different space. And that was something that for me, and I went back and revisited that, and every time I did it for a time period, and you know, at this point, I don't recall what the time period was. It might have been 2 months, it might have been 2 years, I really don't know. But every time I went back, I went into that completely altered state. And I knew that massive quantities of energy were moving inside of me. And of course, that's the objective of this work, is to move massive quantities of energy that does not belong, move it out of the system and replace it with active present love. So if there is a particular show that you listen to, and it does that for you, you know, it's like there are sensitive periods where we can open new spaces and learn things in an instant that otherwise might take years. Actually, that's one of the principles behind Montessori education. You know, if you have a chance to decide where a child's going to go to school, really look seriously at Montessori. And what Maria Montessori discovered was that, of course, every child is individual and every child learns at a different pace. You know, most school systems, well, by the time you're in grade 2, you have to know this, and grade 3, you're supposed to know that, and grade 5, you're supposed to know this. But what Maria Montessori discovered was that there were sensitive periods for a child. And the job of the teacher, more than to teach, was to watch the child, observe their sensitive periods, and then put them in an environment for what they needed to learn, what they were sensitive to learning. So if a child indicated that they were ready for, let's say, multiplication, then they'd have an environment, they'd have a special area of the classroom that was, you know, set up for learning multiplication. If a child indicated that they were ready to go to another level in the use of the English language or writing or history or any topic, the job of the teacher was to guide the child to that environment and then support them in the learning. And what was discovered was that if you try to force a child to learn something, it might take them years, or they might never learn. They might just say, oh, well, I'm bad at that subject. You know, you got one of those when you were in school, oh, I never did well at that, but boy, I excelled in this. Well, the reason you excelled is because you were in the sensitive period for learning it, and bingo, it falls in place. And so I just review that to invite you, if there's something that we're talking about and, you know, oh, gee, I don't quite get it, but something's moving in me, that's a show you want to listen to over and over until you finish with that listening. And I know one day, with my learning on those two paragraphs in the Course in Miracles, I picked them up one day, and they were just words on a page. They did nothing to my mind. It was just reading, you know, some information. So energetically, you know, when we realize we're energetic beings, honor those places in you when you find them, and when you find environments that support you in that type of learning, go for it. It's really important stuff. And so we're here delighted to be part of your process, part of your world, and appreciate the fact that you're here. And when you pass the information on to someone, we appreciate that as well. And so, Ms. Jeannie, do we have anybody in the phone queue, anybody with a hand up, or any questions from the app today?
No, and no. However,
okay.
since you mentioned the app, I got a notice this morning, and Google is requiring us to update our app to meet I think right now it's Android platform 11, and that we have to update it not just to 12 but to 13. And
oh, really?
And Apple so far hasn't said anything. So that means, you know, I don't know how much. I told the gentleman in India to give me a quote for what it's going to cost to upgrade it to meet Google's requirements. So anyway, so that'll be another expense that we weren't anticipating. You want to support us with the app?
Go ahead.
That's all. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I hope that the app will continue to work until we do get it updated. Is that a problem with Google, or I mean, do they give us a time period?
It will work. It's just that people that buy new phones, it might not work on their new phone because all the new phones are coming out with the updated platform or whatever. And we
Technology,
can't
what
make
fun.
a new change. Yeah, we can't make any new changes and submit them without it being compatible with the new phones too.
The latest platform, you know.
Right.
Well, that makes sense. Cool. Well, and I'll reinforce what Jeannie said. If you're benefiting from the work, if you're benefiting from the app and you'd like to support us with it, that would be awesome. There is a donate button on whyagain.org, and you know, basically we do everything we can possibly do free, you know, including this radio show where we actually pay to do it. We don't get paid. We don't have sponsors, you know, so we don't have advertisers and all of that. We just go ahead and pay the bill with Blog Talk, and it's very reasonable. But we really appreciate the service they've given us for the last 12 years, and you know, there have been a couple of glitches here and there where the service didn't work for a day or two or what have you, but overall it's been phenomenal. It's been just, and the fact that we have archives now of over 4,500 hours that you come back and listen to. And by the way, if you do listen to a show that doesn't have a set of notes on it, you know, Jeannie usually keeps notes, but there's some shows that don't have any notes. If you happen to listen to one of those, it would be appreciated if you just, you know, even as sketchy or as detailed as you want to do it. I listened to this particular date, and here's the topics you covered, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, some of the high points of it would be really nice if you'd submit that with in an email to Jeannie, Jeanie, Jeannie at whyagain, WHY, again.org. And then we'll put those notes on the system so that the topics it can be searched for topically. So that'd be nice support if you'd care to do that. And other than that, of course, you know, for those who might be new to the show, Jeannie and I traveled, well, we've been together 20 years, but for that 20 years and then 20 years before that, I was on the road basically 6 to 10 months of the year doing workshops anywhere on the globe we were invited, and we paid our own expenses. Our workshops were free. At the end of each workshop, we just let people know the reason it's free is we're committed to giving it away. Whether you've got money or not, they're relevant. Here, please take it, use it, pass it on. And while we do it free, we haven't figured out how to do any of it for nothing. It all costs. And I don't know how many thousands of dollars there are invested in the app already, but it's significant. And so if you want to support that, jump on whyagain.org, click the donate button, and you know, you can do a one-time donation, you can do a monthly, whatever fits, whatever works. We stopped traveling about 5 years ago when Jeannie's dad became ill, and her brothers were thinking about putting him in a nursing home, and he was terrified of that. So we decided to stop traveling and stay here, take care of him. And about the same time, our granddaughter showed up, and so she is absolutely the light of our lives. We had a fabulous visit with her on Saturday, a little town near here where her other grandparents live, where had a festival, a street festival going on, and Aria at 5 with her mother's consult, decided that she was going to have a lemonade stand. And she was definitely the hottest ticket on the whole trip as she stood out there just, I mean, at first she was very quiet about it. It was like, go for it, are you? And she'd be out there, lemonade, fresh lemonade. And she sold $100 worth of lemonade, which I think is pretty good for a child who's been circling here for 5 years, her first entrepreneurial adventure. In less than a day, made $100. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. And of course, she really wasn't selling lemonade. She was being a presence that was just so sweet and attractive that people would look and you knew they didn't really want lemonade, but they couldn't help themselves. They'd reach into their pockets and dig out $1 and buy a glass of lemonade. And she poured it, and she collected the money, and she handled it all. It was pretty sweet, pretty cool to watch. And so, what are we going to talk about, Jeannie? What's on your mind today?
Well, I've got a slight healing crisis going on, and I haven't quite put my finger on what the trigger was. Perhaps it's been going on for a couple of weeks, but this weekend we also kind of got a closure. We got Dad's military marker and went out and placed it on his grave, and of course we know he's not there, but there was a lot of things that were still hanging out. You know, we were trying to get the guy to come by and engrave his death date on his headstone and just all kinds of things. So we were out at the farm and got a lot of completed, I feel like, anyway. And so I don't know. I don't really have anything to talk about. The only other thing is, if you want part of the show last week, we did cover, and I've got it in 2 places. We covered punishment avoidance and made a list and put them on the website. And also pseudo-solutions of the non-being mind, that's on the website. You can find those either under forgiveness tools, or you can click the Start Here button and click on the special shows, and they're both out there. And so there's several changes going on the website for the last week. So if you happen to run across something that a URL isn't working, use that email address Michael gave you, jeannie@whyagain.org, and drop me a line and let me know what link needs to be fixed. I do appreciate when you let me know. I can't keep up with all of the links sometimes. I know we have a page out on the website that's multimedia, and it's stories and quotes and poems and links to other sites. And a couple of other sites, their links went bad. I don't know, they've got a problem on their website too, but the links to one of the things that was under grief that we had listed about what's holding the space. So I went out and put a couple new links out there, and so hopefully that other site will get theirs going again. But we did have a hand just go up, and I believe it's Miss Susan, 610. You're on the air.
Hi. I'm coming
Welcome.
And going because of a lot. Hey, hi. Jeannie, I missed what you said about a healing crisis, and you don't have to repeat it, except I hope you feel okay. Is it a physical healing crisis sort of thing, or is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I've been having, I actually, probably 6 weeks ago, or maybe even more than that, I don't know, fell on the front hill of the house.
Oh.
The hill's like a really, really steep, and I was out there doing some things, and I fell. And I have been going to the chiropractor, but I've had like some pain in my shoulder and pain in my hip. And I think that, for the last 2 days, my hip hasn't bothered me, but it's showing up in some other areas. And so I think it's just the energy trying to move out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, sweetie, that you've hit, I think your trigger was a new level of vitality. I think probably closure with Dad was some of it, but I think you just kind of, you've been moving in the right direction. The energy with Ari has just been awesome. I mean, so sweet in the house when she's here. It's been a whole upgrade in the presence of love. So I think maybe a new level of vitality. And of course, one of the things to make sure is to keep hydrating, keep water flowing. You know, coffee, tea, those sorts of things don't hydrate. I'm saying this for everybody. If you get into a healing crisis, they're not things that keep us hydrated. It takes water to do that, pure, clean water. So keep the energy moving, keep it flushing. And how are you doing this, Susan?
Well,
what's exciting in your world?
I'm doing well. A lot is going on, but I want to ask you. You mentioned that the Android is asking for a system update, and you have to initiate that with the person in India and all that stuff. I'm being my busybody, want to make money for you person when I say maybe there's a little window as this happens that you can charge for that wonderful app. It's great that you have a donate button on your website and even a mention of the fact, or some you've been mentioning it, that you don't charge for the forgiveness app. But people may find and use the app without even knowing about your website, although it's mentioned on there big time. I don't know whether the system upgrade includes a capacity to the ability to charge. But anyway, it's just me fussing about the fact that you give so much away. I'd like to see you make some big bucks on that. We ought to do a 9-day novena, a visualization of something about coming into focus, which leads me to another question. I happened to stumble on a little video about Nikola Tesla. And although he's long gone from the body, he has a following or a group or a website. I don't know what it is. But they said that he had this very interesting practice based on the numbers 3, 6, and 9. And everything that he did, for instance, if he wanted to live somewhere, he might choose a number that was divisible by 3. He used it in a way, you think of the Trinity, you think of the Catholics doing 9-day prayer cycles for whatever they want, which is a kind of way to manifest or get answers to prayers. But he suggested you create 3 intentions and put it, your responsible language comes in here very much, has to be in positive language and as if it has already happened, because it has. If you can imagine it, it's there. You only have to just open the way for it to come into obvious fruition on this planet. And he talks about doing it for yourself, like visualizing making $10,000 a week or something like that. I have asked in the comments section of this particular video whether I could do it for somebody else, because I've got 3 grandboys that I've kept in my prayers regularly, but I wanted to be as systematic as they suggest. Really write down what has already happened. And I could read you, as an example, I could read you, and maybe I need correcting of the language. For instance, here's one of the intentions, and you spend at least 9 seconds doing it. Well, there's no way I'm going to watch my watch while I'm praying this. You do it 6 times a day for 9 days. I know it sounds very sort of cerebral, and I'll come to my question about this in a minute. Here's an example. Thank you for Charlie's delight in being at school among many friends, his success in his classes, and his peaceful, loving relationship with his father. Also, thank you for finding him a loving girlfriend who gets him. Thank you that he is now free from OCD or any kind with any person. Now, maybe that needs a little tweaking from you, Michael, but that's the idea. And I did one for my grandson Jacob and one for my daughter's youngest boy, Max. So have you ever heard of this?
I'm quite familiar with Nikola Tesla. He was an absolute genius, and the sadly, the government did not want to claim him because I think he was too ahead of his time, and they took all of his materials and sent them back to, I believe it was Hungary. He was Hungarian, and kind of disowned him. But he's responsible for the electric transmission of power across the country. So many things that he did. But I have not heard of the system that he was into of 369. And as far as your intention for your grandson, notice the focus there is on the problem as though it's already happened, even though the word not is in front of it. Remember, and my take would be that any system that one would use to lock their mind into a frequency is going to tend to solidify, strengthen that frequency, and that's what's going to tend to come into expression. So a system that complicated would definitely bring the mind, if someone does that system, it's a ritual, and rituals produce results. However, and I hear you saying everything in the constructive end except where his diagnosis is with OCD, and so my only suggestion would be that maybe you shift the language there into, and he's totally and completely, perfectly mentally healthy, competent and healthy.
Oh, okay.
Competent,
nice.
Confident, and healthy mentally.
All right.
Because that
Great.
confidence, I think, would be another piece where he's expressed the fear he has about not being successful in the world. So confident, competent, and healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, financially. Could put it all in there.
Okay, good. Great. Can I read you the other two then for tweaks?
Please, let's go for it. Sure, that's what we're here for. This is for all of us.
Okay, I'll do Jacob next. Thank you for Jacob's increasing mental health and joy, his courage, his success at getting a job he loves that supports him, his making friends and finding love, and his work as an actor.
Sounds good to me. I'd go hang out with that kid.
Okay, and then
yeah.
And then with Max, thank you for Max's success at school, his love of music, his delight in many friends, and his freedom from anxiety. Now, there might be a glitchy thing. I should say mental health or something, not even mention anxiety.
Right. I'd do the same with what kind of mental capacities would you want to support him in? Competent, capable, healthy mentally, physically, emotionally.
Peace. Yeah. Okay, almost done. Thank you also
in the Aramaic,
for freedom.
In the Aramaic, where we're told that Yeshua said, "My peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you," actually the word was serenity.
Oh, love it.
Serenity is a whole lot more powerful. Peace is actually a word that was made up as an opposition to war. And serenity is really, I think, the state we want to achieve.
Great. Okay, this one might be glitchy. Thank you also for his freedom from his sense of responsibility for his father. Thank you for a girlfriend for him.
I might, again, the focus of the thought is responsibility, and when you understand regulatory speech, whatever your speech is going to tend to be the energy that manifests. So that would, my take would be that would tend to continue his responsibility in that regard. So perhaps something like his total confidence in his father's ability to handle his own life and be responsible for himself.
Great. Great. Confidence in father to handle. His father wants him to fly down to Colombia, where he now lives, for Christmas. He wants Jacob to fly down too, and they're going to both do that. So, what?
Should be an exciting adventure.
It should. both boys are a little nervous about it. But anyway, because they're not sure who they're going to find when they get there. Because the guy is just a sweetheart, except when he isn't, if you see what I mean. Anyway, so, well, thanks. I wasn't even going to ask you about that, but I'm in day 4, and I'm such a pseudo-solution worshiper. If I change it midstream, does it ruin it? Of course it doesn't. You know, none of this intention will ruin it. But
whatever way you choose to create it.
Mm-hmm.
You could create ruination if you chose. I mean, that's totally up to you. And, you know, it might be a good time to just go ahead. If there's some question in your mind that this interruption or shift might ruin it, start over with the 9 days. Clean, clear, rock and roll. And you might share it, you know, check your guidance out. It might be worth sharing with the boys and saying, you know, this is what I'm holding for you. And, you know, join me in it mentally. There's a power in our minds when we join. And let's strengthen this in ourselves and each other.
Oh, good. Yeah.
What a gift.
Nice idea. Good.
You know, when Aria...
Sendingham just decided... Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead. This is a tug of war on the radio show.
Aria, you know, at one time when her mother was feeling ill, she put hands on her, she took care of her, got her water to drink, and encouraged her to hydrate. She's really into hydration. But when her mother asked her about, you know, are you going to be a doctor? And she said, I want to heal people with my love. That was her focus.
Oh, God.
And the other day, you know, I was sharing about her lemonade stand and how excited she was about it. And of course, it's one of the ways that we can get hooked into things. It'd be, wow, you know, at 5 she made $100. How cool is that? But what I acknowledged her for, instead of making $100, was how she was able to share her love with these people through serving them lemonade. And, you know, that she gets that's what it's about, that it's about extending her being, that her purpose is to live as this human being, this presence of love. And what a great way to share your love with them.
Oh, wonderful. Boy, that's a lucky little kid.
Oh, and we are lucky grandparents, let me tell you. We are so blessed by her. It's just... And as I say, lately, there's been just a whole new level of that energy of excitement and presence of love when she comes to visit, you know, 2-3 days a week, creative expression, and it's just awesome.
Oh, she's got to love it.
We do.
So another question. You said
go for it.
Hydrating with tea is not effective. I just learned about how good it is to chew or suck on a clove early in the morning because it has all these anti-inflammatories and things. And then I read a recipe how you can boil cinnamon sticks and cloves and a little rind of lemon and make yourself tea. And I'm thinking, oh, good. Here's this big jar of this stuff, and I'm chugging it, and Michael's telling me I'm not hydrating. Can you please modify?
Well, here's the thing. You're giving your body a fluid, but in order for especially the brain to be hydrated, at least the thesis is that the brain is hydrated directly from the stomach, and that you have to put water in this in order for that hydration to occur. That if you put something that needs some sort of digestive or breakdown process, it doesn't go to the brain and hydrate the way that pure water does. So it doesn't mean...
So, Michael...
I mean, you've got something that's anti-inflammatory. I mean, that's wonderful. Just make sure you drink enough water. Besides that,
in addition,
you know, do your water... Do your water ration. No, your body will take care of that. Do your water ration and add some tea. But using tea or coffee or colas or any of that for hydration is not an effective way to hydrate properly.
Well, you are mixing some good things in my mind with some bad things. I wouldn't dream of putting cola there, and I wouldn't use coffee either. But
no, but there are people. That's what people think.
Okay. Well, in the morning, it was recommended that you have a big, warm glass of lemon water. Is that water? Or have I been fooling myself all these years doing lemon water, and I really should do just water?
My offering would be do just water and then add lemon water. Lemon, a little bit of cayenne, a little bit of maple syrup is an awesome drink for detoxing, for getting rid of phlegm, that sort of thing. And make your basic hydration water. I have a 50-ounce bottle. It's actually a probiotic drink that we found. It comes in a really nice heavy-duty glass, 50-ounce bottle. Before I touch anything else, I drink at least one bottle of that.
Well, what's in it besides water? I thought you were drinking just water.
That's what I said, water.
Okay.
Yeah, I just used this. It was a retail, probiotic drink that we bought. Drank it, and then I just use the empty bottle, and
I see.
that's my measurement for my water each day before I do anything with food or anything else.
Wow.
Coffee or pardon
me. How many ounces?
Coffee substitute, what have you? 50 ounce.
Whoa, that's half my ration for the whole day. My whole.
There you go.
Mackerel. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Now you've done intermittent fasting as well as hydrated yourself.
Okay. Interesting stuff. All right. Well, I don't have any.
And follow your guidance.
Yes. Yeah. Well. Okay. That's a tricky word.
That's the highest. That's the highest thing you can do is train and develop your own intuition and listen to what you need.
Okay. All right.
And do worksheets.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I've been doing the Diederich 6-step because Tim Hayes has been reading Diederich's unbelievably wonderful book. And the 6 steps and the commentary, I don't know whether it's the book or Tim Hayes, I can't tell which, because I came on so late I couldn't tell whether he was reading or talking himself, but in any case, it's the most wonderful. It's good to have a different approach, and things pop to mind from the regular wake-up sheet that sort of stick themselves in there. The biggest one being I forego my wish or need to be right, which is just, I know it's universal problem to be right, to want to be right. So anyway, that's good stuff.
Well, that desire to be right, I think, is part of our brainwash for our early adoption of membership and becoming a card-carrying member of the One World Universal Religion of Blame. It's been around since the beginning, It's like, so letting go of that is one of the ways to tear up your membership card in that church. It's interesting. I was listening to one of the top avowed atheists. I was listening to one of their YouTube things the other day, and it was interesting to hear. And this is someone who, if I mention his name, everybody who's acquainted with anything to do with the atheist movement would know who he was. And it was interesting to hear that he was a card-carrying member of the One World Religion of Blame. Every time the interviewer asked him about, sometimes you become very, well, yeah, but that's only because of what they do to me. Okay.
Oh, brother.
It's kind of fun to hear.
Okay.
And then listening to a couple of different videos that he'd done with different people, and him avowing and, you know, strongly ridiculing people for well, like the example was, yeah, these people in churchianity that believe in mysteries, you know, mysteries, that's just such a silly thing. And then in one of his other reviews, he talked about, he was asked the question, so, well, that's just a mystery. It's like, okay.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
What fun. What fun. So, yeah, that letting go of the need, that's why that's in every worksheet. I let go of my need to be right and make up another reality out of these brain cells. You know, it's easy to blow up a reality out of a pattern. And when you become conscious that that's a propensity of the mind, disavowing that, I think, is really important. So glad to hear Dietrich's got that in his work, too. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, like you, he came upon it out of his own life. With him, he had a very hard beginning. You had some challenges, but they became his teachers, and he's created this book, and this whole kind of stumbled into being a therapist, never had any training. An amazing story.
Very cool. Sweet. Well, anything else on your mind for today?
I don't think so. Things pop up. You know how they do, but go ahead and carry on.
All right. We appreciate you. Lots of love and blessings.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye. All right, Miss Jeannie. Well, it is now, what, we've got about 18 or so minutes left.
Oh, so somebody press 1.
If you're out there in listener land, how can we support you? What's on your mind?
Mr. Terry, 336, you are on the air.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ryce and Dr. Ryce. How you guys doing?
Sir, how are you?
Great. And I was just listening to the lady that was just sharing, and that, to me, definitely very top key ingredient is checking that box of letting go of my need to be right. And I love the way that you explained it the first time that you shared the idea about my mind being an evidentiary device, and then
Right.
It takes in the data, and then it only can put back out what it's got in it. So there's a natural resistance. At least this is the way I understood your lecture. But you know, I had to build more brain cells around it to really understand the significance and the depth of that. And as that evidentiary device, it's going to put back out. I think you used the example of a computer program, and there's programs at 2 + 2, and it says 5, and then it's, you know, the computer's not necessarily bad. It's just running on a bad program. So you want to wipe the hard drive, which is what we'll do here, and then reload it. And so another key component that comes up for me is confusion. And I really got it at a deep level out in Heartland about the fact that confusion is a good thing. And it's like letting go of the need to be right and confusion. Because if I'm letting go of the need to be right and I'm getting conflicting data, I want to hear you share about that. Will you expand on that?
Sure, we can do that. That's a good topic to touch into. And when you recognize, for those who maybe haven't been tapped into this idea of the human mind being an evidential device, there's some interesting Harvard research that says that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing. So they've got somebody in a lab, they've got them hooked up to electrodes, and they're measuring electrical impulses in the brain. And in a time frame where they can measure 10,000 brain cells firing, the max amount of data that goes into conscious awareness, into our perceptual constructs, is 9 bits. And so obviously, if there are 10,000 units of electrical activity happening, and we're only seeing the product of 9 bits, we're looking at evidence. The mind is going to give you whatever evidence it has. And the evidence that it always offers is evidence of its own BS, which of course is belief system. Nobody had a different reality for those initials, right? So the mind always has a reality. And one of the things, if the goal is to be right, and one of the things the Course talks about, would you rather be right or love? Actually, it says loved as though love is a verb, but it's not, it's a noun. Would you rather function as a human being, or would you rather be right? And until we really integrate our human beingness as the presence of love into our physiology, being right is a great option. Because whenever you're right, you get a hit of dopamine. If your goal, whenever you have a goal and you achieve that goal, you get a hit of dopamine, which has been referred to as our happy powder. Someone who uses, say, something like cocaine, why do they go into depression afterward? Because the cocaine accelerates or burns up the dopamine, so there's none left. There's no happy powder, so to speak, left, and so people go into depression. And so people become addicted to being right because they're addicted to the dopamine hit. When you cancel that, when you let go of that, you replace that consciously, purposely, with the presence of your human life, which the presence of love in your cellular structure, active love, like the fact of an active, present, live energy called a human life in your cellular structure, is a whole lot more rewarding than a hit of dopamine. And so the evidential mind will give us evidence if our goal, for whatever our goal is. Doesn't matter whether the evidence is totally stupid, off target, irrelevant. If this goal calls for this evidence, then the mind will, that goal being the driver, the mind will utilize that evidence to prove its point, even if it's totally false. And so letting go of that need to be right literally is letting go of an addiction, and it makes a space when we collapse that energy, that need to be right. It makes a space for the truth of our human lives to show up in our physiology, so that we get to function out of that presence of love. Now, was that where you were heading, Terry, or was there another refinement you were looking for?
Oh, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. And as we practice and all the different methods, like you were offering up the worksheets and the goal canceling, and then listening to each other share these things and bouncing it back and forth, that reinforces it too. And I'm so happy that we've got Dan, who's really experiencing some what would be called miraculous things. And as we talk to each other and support each other, then that builds us all up. And I can say for sure, I'm inspired. I'm building my stack up. I got to catch up on my new round so that I can send my picture out like Dan shared with us with his stack there. So hearing those words and getting it reinforced in the way that you have spent your entire life cultivating this work and expressing it, it's just a really strong energy. And I was sharing to him about how strong it was that very first time I went to Heartland. Oh my God. And you picked me up at the airport, and all this stuff started happening on the way there, and while I was there, it was just very what's the word? There's not really a word that's sufficient enough to describe all the goodness and the excitement. It was aliveness. There was so much aliveness.
You were in a sensitive period, ready for it, right?
Yes, evidently.
Were you on at the beginning of the show when I shared that that Dan had sent me a text telling me he's up to 800 now?
No, I didn't get into this a few minutes while the last of the water dialogue. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right, okay. Well, he had sent me a text just saying 800. It's like, all right.
800. Yep.
Yep. And earlier in the show, I talked about the Montessori understanding of sensitive periods when we're ready for a big energy shift. That's what happens, and I suspect that that first visit to Heartland, that's what was going on for you. You were ready for things to move to the next level, and of course, when truth comes into our minds, and our minds are holding on to something false. Energetically, when those two things meet, they mix. I use the example, I'm sure you've heard me use the example before, and I've always got a whiteboard up there in the front of the room that I work with. So let's imagine that I shine a red light and a blue light and a green light on the board. And it's really clear. We see red, blue, and green. Now we know scientifically there's no such thing as red, blue, or green. They're just frequencies of light and the way the mind interprets them. That's why some people are colorblind, because their brain interprets that frequency different than other people. But if I took the red light and the blue light and the green light and shone them all on one space on the whiteboard, what would we get? We'd get a mix of those energetic frequencies. So we wouldn't see red, blue, or green. I don't know what red, blue, and green put together would give us. Depends on proportions. But we'd see a mix of those, a muddied, or what we'd call a confused picture of those three colors. And that's a perfect and an exact analogy for the mind when the mind's in one of its lies. You made me so mad, and someone's standing there talking about responsibility. When those two energies start to mix, the result is just like the muddied picture on the board. It's confusion. And confusion, when we're in a healing process, is a very high state to thinking we know when we're telling ourselves a lie. So it's an important and necessary step of going through the healing process, and what in step 2 in the worksheet we ask people to embrace. I'm willing to go through the physical, mental, emotional symptoms of healing. And what are they? On a physical level, it's going to be kind of any kind of old physical symptom we've ever had in low energy. On a mental level, it's any kind of negative thought and confusion. On an emotional level, it's any kind of negative feeling and depression. That's what healing looks like. And so that confusion, when we're emptying out trauma-based energies or fraud-based energies, lies of the mind, and they mix with truth, the resultant pictures are somewhat confused. And it's just a principle of physics, the same as with the light energy. And once you understand that, it makes it a whole lot easier to just breathe and go through it rather than get stuck in the confusion. Does that make sense, Terry?
It made perfectly clear sense to me. And I always get into a little bit of a nostalgia and remembered some of the things that happened that would be explained as mysterious or magical or mystical, and they were just beyond basic description. But when the information was given to me about the way my mind was operating, it made perfectly sense. I saw Patrick wearing 2 different sets of clothes within seconds of it, and in the same room, the same space, and it just changed because the reality changed in my mind. Now, how do I prove that? I can't prove it, or I can only share what happened to me, but it was so dramatic when that happened that it took my breath away.
I hear you. I have one of those stories where I had a conflict going on with. This goes back about 30 years ago, but it's kind of like one of those guideposts for me. And there was a conflict going on, and I could perfectly explain how it was all that other person's fault, And instead of getting into that, I did a worksheet. And literally in an instant where that shift took place, I could not even remember how I had even fantasized or justified that it could have possibly been about them. It was so clear that what was going on was mine. And so those are the kinds of, for me, they're like, that's the kind of signpost that I can hold on to in the future to go, oh, my mind is in its confusion now, so I know it's lying to me. So now I know I have work to do, and I'm willing to, move to another state. But Terry, and maybe you'll share this story. I've shared it a couple of times over the years on the show. One of my favorite stories, you referred to it a few weeks ago when you called in, was about Rockma. Would you like to share that? To me, that was so hilarious.
Yeah. Well, we were there, and the lectures were going on. Everybody was sitting and doing, and then the conversation moved over to Rockma, and I was like, my mind was in all this like confusion, and I wasn't getting it. And I asked you over and over about Rockma, trying to get an understanding through my confusion, and then you finally went outside and picked up a rock, and you come back in here holding it in front of me and point, Rockma. And so those are the highlights for me. You probably remember more about the dialogue than I do, because I was in a confused state here processing.
Yeah, the way the reality I have for it, the way I remember it was that it was laws of living, and the lesson was about Rockma. And you remember, we're doing the Socratic method of questions, and it went around to you to answer the question. The answer to the question was Rockma, and you just sat there, and you sat there, and you sat there, and you sat there. And it was the topic of conversation. That's when I got the rock, and you went, oh, yeah, Rockma, there it is. Anyway, it was hilarious. It was hilarious. It was just like, everybody just broke up. It was one of those moments that's precious. Been a lot of precious moments at Heartland. For sure. Well, we've got about 4 minutes left, Terry. Anything else on your mind?
Nothing comes up. That was in direct correlation to what Dan and I were talking about. These things that happen that are these signposts, these milestones, these markers of undeniable realities, reactions, changes that work and actually do. Because what I found is that, within a few weeks or months and all, then my mind just started to bring up other thoughts and realities and kind of clouds, and starts to downplay that. It wants to pretend like it didn't happen or minimalizes it. And so that's another benefit of continuing to be engaged and hearing these stories of what's going on in each other's lives and how that we're being impacted by doing this work and the events that are just undeniable. And then we can share them back with each other and get validation on it. And it's just so important about being together as humans. That's my theme for the last few weeks is that how much richer is the world with my other fellow humans to interact with.
Yeah, community is powerful. Definitely powerful. So appreciate the fact that you're a part of our community and have been for so long, and that we get to be a part of yours. It's really quite awesome.
What's our topic tomorrow?
Probably whatever comes up. I don't know.
Whatever comes up, yeah.
Maybe you'll have the question that will set the tone for where we go tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll come up with something. We'll see. Yep, it's worth the thought.
All right.
It's definitely worth the action.
Yeah,
worth the action.
I had actually, yes, I would share when we first started, I spent about 2.5, 3 hours yesterday. I was working on a piece for the show today, and it crashed totally. First time it's ever happened in this particular program that I use. It just totally, completely gone. So I left our day wide open today.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, appreciate you. Lots of love and blessings, everybody. Appreciate you joining us. Have the best year yet of your eternal life. It is an awesome